Okay, so I might be back. With any luck, I'm back. Um, no idea. I hope y'all enjoyed that. I hope you were able to see it. I'm juggling more technical things than I'm accustomed. Unbelievable article in the Epic Times. Take a nope. Juggling lots of things here. So I let's see. My chat window is here. Am I back or not? No, chat is still closed. That is annoying as hell. I mean, heck. Says I'm streaming. Probably y'all are watching me just, oh, I am back. Okay, yes. All right, good. Okay, so in that case, were people able to watch the video? If not, we'll just say, you can watch it later. But hopefully you are able to see that, and hopefully you're able to be hearing me now. I did turn my volume back on, I think. Yes, I did. Okay, so yeah, so that was it was an amazingly fun project for me, and that hope that those of you who participated enjoyed it also. Um, I had mostly finished kind of talking through the process of putting it together, but I do want to just finish this last little bit of what I was talking about. I have this melody here of mine. Um, Boom, and then when it comes in the next voice here, boom, boom, at this point I start what's called a stretto section. And in the stretto section, I let the other voices start imitating sooner rather than waiting for measures like right? So this is that same melody, just offset by one beat. And then here it's actually the same melody offset by only half a beat and transposed a little bit. So it's getting a little fancy, but that's because I'm just trying to wrap the thing up and come to a dramatic conclusion. So that is how I concluded the piece. When you're writing a canon, at some point you have to figure out how to end it, and so you put in something that's appropriately dramatic feeling, and that's what you generally do. So that is that is the canon, and we've talked about it a bunch. And really, I'm happy to take further questions and talk about it more. But really, what I want to do, thanks, Marcus. Really, and let me just go back and see if I can find the premiere of the thingy that I just did, because I do want to make sure if there's comments, if there's stuff happening in chat there, that I'm seeing it. I think while it was premiering, it wasn't showing up for me, but maybe if I refresh my screen, it will. Because I don't want to leave anyone hanging who's trying to still comment on the premiere, but also obviously. I don't know what's happening here while it's reloading this tab, but it's going to just be, it's just being extremely slow. Corona Canon, here it is. View. So if I go over here, I guess the question is, will I see comments? Is a chat still open, or did the chat close when the video stopped? It could also be people are posting comments at this point. But yeah. The world is really slow right now for me. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video here because it doesn't look like there's a chat anymore. There's just a replay of it. So I'm going to, come back later and check on chats. Okay, so yeah, that was, as I said, it was a lot of fun putting together. There's all sorts of places where, you have to make certain allowances. Like there's that I mentioned before, I'm trying to avoid a certain amount of doubling, but it's not like doubling is inherently bad, but it does draw attention to itself. There's dissonances like that, and dissonances aren't bad as long as you resolve them well. And this isn't necessarily ideal. One voice is leaping out of the dissonance, but I lived with it. There's other places where, for instance, uh, there's parallel there's parallel octaves here between the C and the C and the E and the E. That's not necessarily ideal, but that's to some extent unavoidable. That's going to happen, C, C, E, E. And I'm just not going to worry about it a whole lot. One that bothers me maybe a little more is the doubled leading tone that happens. Oh, actually, this dissonance right here. Actually, it's not that bad. But anyhow, there's certain places where there's like a leading tone. This that's not even it. But there's certain places where that B is present in two different voices at the same time in a way that's slightly jarring if you pay too close attention to it. But yeah, I don't even remember where it is, and it's not that important. So I just did my best to make things all line up. So what I want to talk about, though, at this point, for anyone who's managed to rejoin the live stream here, because I know it cut out and it's back now, but it's video output low. Yeah, so I guess where I'm at right now is my internet connection isn't good enough, and I'm in a temporary office right now. I'm going to have a new office in a few weeks, and I'm in a temporary one right now, and I guess I need to check on my internet connection. Hopefully the real office has it better. But that all aside, I want to talk about collaboration in general and ways that you can actually share things, like work on multiple people working on the same piece of music. So we did this all by not necessarily email, but it was uploading individual scores and me copying and pasting things to join them together, it worked. We used MuseScore.com as sort of a place to put things, and that was all well and good. But I want to look at maybe more clever ways of collaborating that maybe MuseScore doesn't support directly, but if you really think about how you organize things, you can make this work. And I realized one of the things that got me started thinking about this is when I got my Chromebook a few months ago and started using it in conjunction with my Windows computer, I wanted them to be able to look at the same scores folder. So this score here is on my Windows computer, but I can access that same score on my Chromebook without having to like upload it, download it. And that's because I'm using Google Drive. Chromebooks naturally want to use Google Drive for everything. Well, I have the Google Drive app installed on my Windows computer, and so therefore everything that I save on my Chromebook automatically shows up in the Google Drive folder on my Windows computer, and vice versa. You can do the same thing with Dropbox. There's other synchronization services, but since I'm using a Chromebook, it just made a lot of sense to me to use that. So what I want to do now is I want to share with you guys a link to my thing, this collaboration file, and we're going to watch what happens. Now, please don't do anything with it yet, but I am going to get the link. Thanks. Thanks for the comments. I guess I'm getting notifications of comments on the video on my phone, which is great. Okay, so what am I looking for again? I'm looking for this, MuseScore, and then public, and then it's that, collaboration. So if I grab the shareable link for this, copy link to clipboard, and then paste it, All right, I'm going to post this link and go ahead and open it. If you're watching, if you're near your computer right now, you can go ahead and click that link. When you click that link, it will take you to that file on my Google Drive, and it will offer to let you download it. And you can do that. What the thing is, and this I saved it in MSCX format, which is actually a text format, so it's actually showing you the contents of the file. I would have to actually share this. Actually, I don't really know how that would work. I'd have to think about that for a second. But what I can tell you is this. Here is that file. It's called Collaboration, and I'm going to save a few notes into it. All right, I've just saved a few notes into it. I'm now going to take my Chromebook over here, and I'm going to load that same score into my Chromebook. Oops. And when I do that, I have to wait just long enough for the thing to synchronize, which is also a slight issue. You can't be too fast about it. But if I open this score on my Chromebook now, it's still not there yet. So I think because I'm sitting here broadcasting and my internet connection is slow, things aren't working as they should, and that's not going to work. But what I will tell you is I do this sort of thing all the time, and I just give myself a few minutes. If I want to go from one computer to the next, I give myself a few minutes, and then it will show up on the other computer. And here it is. So if you can see that, if you can't, I can at least play it. Right, that's my Chromebook playing it. And now I'm gonna, over here on my Chromebook, I'm gonna go ahead and add some more notes and save it. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna close it here, and then I'm just gonna open it up again. I gotta get to the right folder again. Actually, is it still in my recent files? That would be nice. No, because I never opened it. I just saved it. That's the thing. It's only a recent file once you've actually opened it. If you created the file new and then saved it, it's not a recent file yet. So by the time I get to it, I will have it. So the point is, I have a file now that is being shared between my two computers. And when I open this file now, it still doesn't have that change yet, and that's okay. As I said, it takes a minute or two for it to actually update. But if I keep trying this, after a few minutes, it will update. So, and you're going to get to see that. You're going to get to see my descending scale in a moment. It will happen. Anyhow, so if you have a group of people, you could have one version of the file that you're all updating like this. If you're all sharing that folder and saving to that same thing, the only trick will be to make sure you don't step on each other. Because if, like, I open that file right now, still not there. If I try adding some stuff to it now and save it, it's going to clobber the changes I made on the other machine. So that synchronization is something that you would have to figure out a way of working out. And so what I want to talk about a little bit is maybe a strategy for doing that. And the strategy is going to be based on thinking about how this works on other programs that do build in some sort of collaboration. There it is, finally. So a few minutes it took, but now finally that is the changes that I made on my Chromebook that are now visible. So it's I need to refresh my screen over on this computer or I'm not going to see my chat, apparently. if you have two people who are like really wanting to work at the very same time, you can see that that's not really going to work. However, uh, even though it's not literally going to work to do it at the same time, like you can in Google Docs, right? Google Docs is really cool. You can have multiple people typing at the same time, and somehow it all works. That's difficult. But this is more of a one at a time model, and you just have to have some way of sort of communicating, say, this is my day to make changes, this is my day to make changes, or this is my hour to make changes, this is my hour to make changes. And then after you're done with your changes, you somehow make it known that, okay, I'm done with my changes, and then everyone else closes the file and reloads it to bring in your changes, and then whoever says, okay, I'm next, I'm going to make some changes now, then everyone else stops editing. So that's kind of the model that would happen here. And then the challenge is to see if there's any way to automate that. And I don't know the answer to that. What I would like the answer to be is that yes, somehow through plugins we could do that. I don't know for sure that it would be possible. At this point, I'm going to give it about a 30% chance that it would literally be possible now to write in a plugin to do the things I imagine. But let's talk about what I would imagine. What you would want is a way of signaling everyone else that you're collaborating with, I'm working on this now. Do not edit it. So you would in the plugin, you would want there to be a button you can push that somehow sends a notification to everyone. What would that look like? Well, a plugin within MuseScore can only do certain things, but I think I don't know if it can send an email or do anything else fancy notification-wise, but what it probably can do is it could create a new file. Like I'm thinking about how other programs that try to coordinate things, they use what's called a lock file. By putting a lock file in a folder, it's like a file that sits there and tells everyone else who's looking at that folder, someone else is editing this now. So if the plugin were to create a lock file and then also were to sit there and look for that lock file, so that it's like sitting there constantly looking, waiting for that lock file to appear. That's one of the things I don't know if a plugin can literally do. But if a plugin can't, some external program can. So as soon as you push the button that says, I'm working on this now, it would store a lock file there. And then on everyone else's computer, it would see the lock file and pop up a dialog that says, don't edit this file now. Now, could it prevent you from editing that file? Maybe. There's permissions. We could set the permission on that file to be read-only. And there's things that we could do like that, or we could temporarily rename the file so that no one else can see it even while it's there's things that we do, or we could close it in everyone else's version of MuseScore. We could just force that score to be closed, or we could not let the person who requested that they want to start editing. We could like have pressing that button say, okay, I'm going to let you edit it as soon as everyone else closes it, and then it would somehow have to wait until everyone else has closed theirs. Anyhow, I'm looking at ways that could be automated, but even without the automation, just doing, as I said, a daily thing and saying that, this is my day, this is my day, this is my day to work on the thing, or otherwise signing up for times. And at the end of that time, you would be expected to save your changes. So like I could say, all right, it's this guy's let's add some. So I make some more changes here, and then when I'm done, I somehow send out a notification to everyone, and maybe you just use chat for that, right? Maybe you have a chat going with everyone else, and you say, all right, I'm done with my changes now, your turn. And so everyone else is going to have to wait for that to actually show up on their computer. And again, if I go to my Chromebook here and try to load that score, I have a feeling I'm not going to see the changes. I don't see the changes yet, but we know that if I wait long enough, I eventually will. So, we'll have to figure out some way of doing that, and that'll just be one of the things that for now you would have to do that manually. And so, yes, it's a pain in the butt, but come on. compared to writing this all out on paper, putting it in an envelope, putting a stamp on it, and sending it to your friend, and say, "Hey, you work on this thing now." And then 3 days later he gets the letter, or a day later, whatever it is, how far away he lives. Because we can collaborate across the world here. It would take days back in the old days to do that. Or even if it's email, it's still a pain in the butt to save the file and then email it to someone. It's here, the only thing we're really having to coordinate is who is saving when, and so forth. So that's the thing that I feel like could be done. So yeah, I think everyone who works on MuseScore recognizes that this would be a wonderful thing to be able to really automate real-time collaboration, like is in Google Docs. And in principle, I mean, it's a lot of work, but it's not like we don't understand what would have to happen. What would have to happen is every time you make any edit, boom, internally it fires off what's called a command, and the fact that you can undo it is one of the things that makes it a command. Commands are things that are undoable. That's a slight exaggeration, but there's this whole wrapper around the idea of what is a command, and it is something that is undoable. And if I fire off a command to do a certain thing, then what would have to happen is everyone else who has that file open would have to get notification that someone else just did this command, and then that same command would be fired off on their version of MuseScore. So somehow all the versions of MuseScore would not only have to be looking at the same score, but they would want to actually receive information from the other versions of MuseScore that are looking at the score. So that the versions of MuseScore themselves would have to communicate so that they could say, "I just issued the following command. You all need to do the same command." And hopefully, if you have two people trying to do two commands at once, as long as they're not operating on the same part of the score, that would work. If they are operating on the same part of the score, literally at the same time, then we might have a problem, and so we'd have to sort out whose command wins or something like that. It would be complicated, but it would be doable. So let's do the tab thing, since someone is asking about tabs. I'm happy to answer some questions. All you do is when you create your score, I'm not going to create a score, no, I'm going to add one to this one. When you create your score, you can say, "I want guitar tablature." Actually, I'll show you that, but then I'm not going to do it. So when you go to create your score, here under solo, you'll see guitar tablature. There's guitar tablature alone, or there's guitar plus tablature, where it'll have a standard staff and a tab staff together. But what I'm going to do is press I to go to the instruments dialog. It's also under the edit menu. And then I'm just going to add a guitar. So I will add a electric guitar, and I'm going to make it a standard staff, but I'm going to add a linked staff so that when I add notation, it'll automatically show up in the tablature and vice versa. And so I'm going to pick I'll pick the simple style of tablature. Doesn't show rhythms. So now I have an electric guitar staff, and I can add notes to this. I'll go ahead and add them here. And then you see that as I add notes to the guitar staff, they show up in the tablature, and vice versa. If I'm on the tablature staff, I can actually enter notes on each string individually. So 3rd fret here, 0th fret there. No, sorry, 2nd fret. And then 0th fret here, and then 1st fret there. So that's basically the gist of that. And now that I've added a new track, that will show up over here on my Chromebook also. If I go to my Chromebook and load that same score, by now we'll see the other edits, I think. Yeah, so now we see those other edits I made, and in a couple more minutes, we'll see that tablature. So, yeah, in order to get this real-time collaboration, it's going to require some work, but it's not like we don't understand the principle of it. It's work. It's not going to be something that could happen next month or anything. And we've already kind of announced plans that we're working towards MuseScore 4. For a long time we weren't really even sure there was going to be a MuseScore 4. We might just keep having 3.5, 3.6, 3.7, 3.8, etc. I see the question about grace notes, and I'll get to that in a second. MuseScore 4 has now been sort of announced as a thing we're working toward that is going to be more of a more fundamental change, especially to the playback side of things, so that it can support working with VST instruments and Note Performer in particular, and get more happening with how the playback works, more sophisticated things. So that's still going to take a long time, but in the process, it's going to sort of create a big break with things. And I'm not saying that we would also do this real-time collaboration in MuseScore 4, but I would say it wouldn't happen until MuseScore 4, but then it would probably be really 4.1 or 4.2. So, grace notes. So first of all, you have to realize a triplet doesn't literally make sense for grace notes, because a triplet means 3 notes in the space of 1 or in the space of 2 or whatever, but grace notes are played not in any particular rhythm anyhow, so there's not really such thing as a triplet grace note, but you can certainly add 3 grace notes. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to press, I'll use the palette for one of them. I'll just hit the grace note on the palette, and I did another one, and then for the third one I'll just use the shortcut, which is the slash. So now I've got my 3 grace notes. There. And there you go. So that's 3 notes that are grace notes. It's not literally a triplet because, again, literally a triplet doesn't make sense. Now, there are some older scores that for some reason decide to put a 3 on it anyhow. That there's no reason to do that. It makes no musical sense to do that because, again, there's no rhythm to this. It's just 3 notes played as fast as possible. But if you do want to see the 3, you could certainly add it as a fingering. And now you got a little 3 there that you can add and, make it look as if it was a triplet, even though there's no such thing. So, so at this point, if I come back over to my Chromebook, I think maybe I will see, yeah, my tablature has showed up now. I think you can see that. I hope you can see it. And if not, just trust me, the tablature is there. So that it's really fairly fast to do that, and it's easier than sending email. It's fewer files to keep track of. This is all just one file. Now we could do it by having everyone have their own version of the file in that folder, and then you work on your version, and then someone is tasked with maintaining the master version and then copying and pasting from everyone's individual version. So that would be a version where you wouldn't have to worry about people stepping on other people's changes, because you would only be changing your own version of that file. So instead of copying one single file called collaboration, there'd be a collaboration Marc and a collaboration Mike and a collaboration everyone else, Marcus. And so you would just edit your own version of the file, and periodically you would somehow synchronize it with the main version by having, like, maybe at a time when you're done with your changes, you copy it to the main file, and then make sure everyone else then updates. But it would still require the same thing, because if 2 people are trying to make edits at the same time, they wouldn't literally step on each other. But then when we go to update the main file, somehow we have to merge in those changes. So that's why it would have to maybe be like one person in charge of the main file who's in charge of merging in everyone's individual changes. But now, again, there's no files to pass around. It's just a matter of that person seeing that, oh, that person has updated their stuff, and then copying and pasting their changes into the thing. That's not ideal, because not all changes are easily copy and pastable. I mean, it might be that you deleted something, right? So that's not really the way you want to do things, but it's another thing to think about. So I don't know. These are just some of the things that I was thinking about as collaboration things. But I just wanted to put this idea in people's heads, especially if anyone who's watching this has any familiarity with plugin programming. I don't. I mean, I know programming on MuseScore itself. In fact, I'm working on something right now, kind of fixing an issue with melisma lines. I don't really know how to write plugins. I could learn, but I used to know, but then they've changed it, so I don't know anymore. But if anyone does, you might want to think about some of the things I've talked about and whether any of this stuff about writing a lock file, watching a lock file, popping up a notification when the lock file appears, or things like that, if any of that is doable within the plugin framework. If not, that's no big deal. It probably could be some other standalone program that just sits there and watches that folder, and then it would pop up when changes are made, and could also manage things like changing the permissions on the file so that it can't be written directly, and then there's stuff like that that could happen. I don't have the time or the energy to think all of that through right now. I'm just using this cafe to kind of brainstorm a little bit and maybe inspire someone, because I do feel like it would be possible to develop some form of automation for this. So for the am I work yeah for the what I'm doing with the Chromebook right now is this is just Google Drive. So I am saving this file onto Google Drive. What that really means what it really means is you're saving it to your disk, and then something is in the background constantly synchronizing with let me save my triplet here so I can watch that show up. So when I save that, it's saving it to my computer, sure. It's to a special file called Google Drive that the Google Drive app automatically synchronizes with my actual Google Drive. So that if I actually go to Google Drive and come here and go Drive, and so everything that I'm saving here goes to my computer but is synced to Google Drive within a minute or so. And then the same thing is happening on the Chromebook. Probably that syncing happens more seamlessly than it does on Windows. On Windows, I had to install the Google Drive app, and I think it only runs the sync every minute or two. On the Chromebook side, I think every time you save a file, it just goes to Google Drive because that's just where it goes. And so I think it sees changes sooner and puts changes there sooner. Yeah, everything is crazy slow with my internet connection now while I'm broadcasting, and so just even looking at my Google Drive is being really slow. So yeah, so let me talk about the browser-based app part too, because yeah, that is a thing, and I'll show you that. Um, it's it is a thing, and it actually works after a fashion. It's a company called RollApp. All right, so let me just finish what I was doing here. I wanted to show you that the file is right there. And if I go to MuseScore, it's just going to be so slow that it's not worth it. And the time it takes me to open the file, the sync has happened, I'm sure. But so take my word for it. It went to Google Drive, and then the other computer just sees it. So I'm not having to do anything special. I didn't have to set up any special server or anything like that. I just had to install the Google Drive app on my Windows computer. If it was Chromebooks, I wouldn't have even had to do that. So let me talk about RollApp. I can tell by how slow everything is right now that RollApp has like no chance in hell of actually working. But I'm gonna go to the RollApp site. RollApp is a company that has put out web-based versions of a number of apps. They're all open source apps, I think, or apps that they were able to get permission to do this as necessary. So if I go here, wow, looks like there's an actual extension or something for Chrome. That I've never tried that. That would be interesting to check out. But if you just go to the website, or maybe I did install that at some point, I don't know. Memory isn't what it used to be. So yeah, my computer and my system is so slow while I'm broadcasting that it's hard to do this, but it actually does work. So if I come to here and let it finish doing this, and I hit the launch online button, at some point we're going to see MuseScore. It might take a little while because everything's slow, but I'll just keep talking. It will show me MuseScore, and it's running on their server, on RollApp's server. And they have a free account where you can play around with this stuff. But in the free version, yeah, I have to log in to create an account. I mean, I've already created an account, but obviously it doesn't remember that, so it's going to make me log in, and I don't even remember. If it doesn't remember my password for me, then I'm closed. But it gives you a limited number of capabilities if you don't have. Yeah, I was hoping it would start filling in my password for me. So yeah, I don't remember, and I'll have to. I don't want to sit here typing passwords live on YouTube. But it will run it in a window. The thing is, sound doesn't necessarily work. I think you need a pro account or whatever their paid account is to get sound to work, although I'm not positive about that. But also, if you want to hook it up to your Google Drive account so that you can save files and share them with your other computers, also, I think that requires a paid account. But so they do provide the service, and it does kind of work. And it's not inconceivable that someday we would figure out a way of doing that ourselves also. In fact, it probably would happen if we ever do this Google Docs version of things where the different MuseScores are collaborating, communicating amongst themselves. I would imagine it would be just as well to do that through the browser also. Make a browser-based version while we're doing it. Not exactly sure what that really means, but I can also tell you that someone else on the MuseScore forum created a browser-based version of MuseScore. It doesn't run online, it runs locally. It creates like a server on your own machine, or it uses like a built-in server on Windows. I'm not exactly sure, but it does run MuseScore within a browser window. Again, it doesn't actually do anything online. It's not using your internet connection while you do it, I don't think. I'm not too clear on the details of it, but it is a very interesting technology that this guy put together. And he just posted about it like a month or two ago, and we're still wrapping our brains around it. Meanwhile, we're thinking about what is MuseScore for. Meanwhile, we're dealing with the fact that coronavirus has us all working individually, more isolated even than usual. So, things are a little odd. So yeah, that is what I mean. That is, if I was able to get RollApp going, you would see that it actually is in a browser tab. It's MuseScore in a browser tab. And it has all the same capabilities. And then when you save a score, it goes to its own special location. But if you have a paid account, it'll go to your Google folder. So it really does actually do that. But the other version where I said it's really kind of running locally, and it's that version doesn't allow for sharing in the same way, but it would at least allow, say, someone who has on a device like an iPad that can't otherwise run MuseScore. This other guy's approach would at least allow that to work. It doesn't really help as much with the sharing as what the RollApp approach works a little more with that, because it is more cloud-based. Anyhow, those are all much more complicated technologies that require a lot more work from our end developing MuseScore to get these things to work. The stuff that I started off talking about is more about stuff that MuseScore, just coordinating with a service like Google Drive or Dropbox. You can do this now. You just have to think about how you want to synchronize these changes, and like how you want to make sure that you don't step on each other. But it's doable. So if you're looking to collaborate with someone else on music, I say try it. Try to figure some stuff out, and maybe share with us. Oh, this worked for us. This didn't work for us, and maybe we could come up with some plans. Let me see if I can. No, this is good because I didn't have a plan. This is a brainstorm session. I'm going to see if I can find that really quick, because I had totally forgotten about that, to be honest, until you brought it up. So I'm glad you did, Mike. I want to see if I can find that. It was in the forum, and yeah, it's just going to take forever to get to the dang forum. But if I can find it, I'm going to do it. So I'll just keep talking while I look. So I don't really have anything else particular that I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to talk about these ideas of of sharing files. So yes, and obviously you can email files back and forth. You can upload to musescore.com and download like we did for the Corona Canon. But I think this idea of letting Google Drive or Dropbox handle the sharing of the file is really powerful if you can somehow take on the work of just synchronizing your changes so that two people don't step on each other. So I think actually if I use the search here, and I don't know, I'm not sure, and that's part of the problem. I think in Scriptum is what the thing is called, and I think if I search on that, I think that's the technology he used, but I'm not positive. And I don't know if this is telling me that there's no results or if it's just slow. Oh, here we go. So yeah, that was what was done a while ago, 2013, so I tried it. Here it is. This is, I believe, the guy's thread where he talked about it. So it's going to take forever to load. Oh gosh, my battery's running low too. Let me just paste this link. There's that link, and here is that link. There we go. All right. So I think I'm going to put my web connection, my internet connection out of its misery. And as I said, I really didn't have anything else specific. This was just brainstorming. I wanted to build a share of the Corona Canon. Sorry that the things hung up in the middle of it. Yeah, this whole idea of collaboration and online collaboration has just been such a thing now for the last couple months that it's really where my brain has been. And so much of what I've been thinking about is about that. And this really came up from thinking about, oh, you're welcome, Mike. This actually came up, I should mention, from using the site BandLab, which there's I don't know if Colleen's here today, but an ensemble I direct. That normally we have weekly rehearsals, but now it's all just online Zoom meetings. We're going to be using BandLab, which is a collaborative website, kind of a Google Docs-ish sort of thing, but for audio. It's not as much like Google Docs. It's much more like what I'm talking about. One person at a time edits, and you don't step on each other, but it has built-in stuff on the site to prevent the stepping on each other by having everyone's changes go to a separate revision. And if you want to build on someone else's revision, you have to explicitly do that. And so that model is what got me thinking about this. So yeah, there's all sorts of things having to do with collaboration that are just in the air right now. I'm not going to talk about it every week, but I don't know. It seems like there's just a lot of things coming up that deal with it. So I will continue to talk about it as well as anything else that comes up. So I think, as I said, I'm going to wrap this up, and I hope you've found something to think about in this, maybe something you all want to try on your own, even if it's just doing what I'm doing of having two different computers of your own sharing files. But if you do get inspired to think about, how you might try to automate this talking, sharing with a band, I'd love to hear what ideas you all come up with, if you come up with any best practices. So I will sign off here and see you next week and talk about, well, who knows what really, but we'll always find something to talk about. So thanks again and see you next time. Bye.